Northwest Ontario is home to more remote First Nation communities than any other region in North America, many of which are unreached with the gospel and don't have evangelical churches. The Karras and Clockengay families have spent 2 years intensively training to be missionaries among unreached people groups like these, and now, after years of praying, they have decided to commit their lives to serving these people. The first Native community that To Every Tribe is sending them to is called Cat Lake First Nation. It is a relatively small and very remote community, accessible only by aircraft 11 months out of the year. The exception to that is in February, when they build an ice road to bring in fuel and supplies. Cat Lake is home to a precious people, precious to God and therefore us. The people in this community have been through much suffering. On top of their own fallenness in Adam, they have been greatly abused by outsiders. Beginning in the late 1800s, an entire generation of children ages 4 and up were sent away to residential schools against the will of their families. This was the experience of almost all children until 1970. The residential schools were funded by the Canadian government and staffed by various Christian denominations. At these schools, unthinkable and utterly horrifying things occurred. Children were malnourished, physically and sexually abused, disciplined when they spoke in their native languages or practiced their native culture, and some children did not even live to see their families again. Though the residential schools have all been shut down, lives have forever been changed. Children were reunited with their families after years, in some cases more than a decade of separation. During that time, their language and culture had been aggressively stripped from them, and upon returning home, some could no longer communicate with their parents. These children are now parents and grandparents themselves. Many have struggled, having no model of family growing up, no frame of reference of marriage to pass on. Living through such traumatic abuse, families today in the communities are suffering wounds from the past that have continued to bleed into the present. Sadly, some living without hope have taken their lives in suicide. Others have turned to alcohol and prescription drugs to numb the pain. And now, the newest generation of children are growing up in this extremely difficult environment. As for the presence of the gospel in these communities, it has been as adulterated as the culture. Those that first shared the gospel with the children were in many cases the very people that perverted the gospel by abusing them. Therefore, church and the white man are not a welcome thought for everyone. Many still hold bitterness in their hearts over what the so-called Christians took from them. Contrary to what has been done in the past, our heart is to serve the First Nations people by making disciples of Christ, teaching them to share the hope of the gospel in their own community, and helping them establish their own native-led local church. It's going to take a lot of work and sacrifice to bring the message of the gospel to Cat Lake, but it is worth it. Jesus is worth it.